Hello, everybody. Right off the hop, I do apologize if you can hear my washing machine in the background because I can hear it, so it might come through the mic a little bit, but I'm hoping that it doesn't pick it up. But it is quite loud to me still with the headphones on, so it might a little bit. But today we are, sorry, oh my god, I lost my train of thought talking about my washing machine. We are going to review the movie Shang and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, I am glad I went to watch this movie because I would have totally butchered the pronunciation because I thought it was Shang-Chi, but it's actually Shang-Chi. So, yeah, looking at that, you wouldn't think that that was the pronunciation of it, but that is what it is. What it is. Now, I'm not sure where this movie is going to fall into the timeline exactly, but if I had to guess, I would think that it would fall somewhere along the lines. See, it's really confusing because part of it makes me think that it's going to fall somewhere after Iron Man 3, and another part of me thinks that it's going to fall somewhere in the timeline order of Doctor Strange. As to where that is, I can't. So let's see. Iron Man 3 is right before Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So I'm thinking that it might be somewhere within there, or it could be. Now, where is Doctor Strange? Doctor Strange is way up just before Thor Ragnarok and after Black Panther. So it might be between those two movies. I'm kind of wondering. Whether it is or whether it isn't, because at the very like I guess I have like kind of like the mid-credit scene where Bruce Banner is back to being Dr. Banner, and also Captain Marvel was there. So, and it's weird. And then it just said the Ten Rings will return. So I'm not really sure when they're going to return or what's going to happen. But anyhow, let's see. That's just my prediction as to where it could fall upon in the timeline order. One of those two places is what I'm going to guess. So we have this. Actually, the story starts out with the telling of the Legend of the Ten Rings, obviously. And if anybody recognizes the symbol, it's actually been part of the Iron Man movie series. Because in the first movie, the Ten Rings was claiming to be a terrorist organization in Afghanistan, and then in the I guess it was Iron Man 3, wasn't it? That because Iron Man 2 was more about just a random enemy. I'm not really sure. I think Iron Man 2 was kind of more like a filler movie than anything else, to be completely honest with you, which is why I think I gave it such a low rating, because it just seemed weaker than the other two movies. And Iron Man 3, I think, kind of went back to the roots of a new terrorist being involved in something, and oh god, what am I thinking here? Yeah, and the Ten Rings was back in Iron Man 3, wasn't it? And what was his Project AIM? Right. We do actually see when, I guess, what was his name? Sean. He renamed himself Sean when he moved to America, which is funny. And his best friend's name is Katie, who was played by, is her actual name Aquafina? That's funny. Spelled totally different from the water Aquafina, but I think that actually is the pronunciation of her name. Oh, good lord. And Simu Liu, I think is how he said his name, and he's actually in Kim's Convenience, I guess. Now, I've never seen an episode of it, so that would make him Canadian, because I believe that show is shot in Toronto, so I do know a little bit about it, but not enough to say anything upon it as far as his acting in it goes. But he did fabulous in this film, so I can't imagine his acting is bad. That's for sure, because he did a good job fitting into this role. Now, I will say, obviously, it is a hero role, and I think maybe it was because I guess we're kind of trying to throw in a new age of heroes, and this one, I will say, is probably going to become one of my favorites, because I do love a martial arts film, and that's exactly what this was. So I will say this is probably going to be one of my new favorite heroes. as far as that goes. I don't know where to rank him, but I think once they come out with all the Phase 4 movies, I think I might actually do, well, maybe not all of them, because I guess we've kind of seen everybody else except for obviously the newer people like him. So I think I will do a ranking system maybe at the end of the year as to all the Marvel characters. But anyhow, this story starts off, obviously, like I said, with the telling of the legend of the Ten Rings, I guess, and where they actually originated. So obviously, they've been around for, I don't, thousands of years, I guess, and Shang-Chi's father actually was the, I don't know whether he was the original owner or at least one of the owners. I guess he must have been the original owner because he took on armies and just wanted power the entire time, and that's all he really cared about. And I guess, I'm not sure whether the rings were keeping him alive or whether he was just superhuman and was able to live for that many years. Anyway, he ends up meeting his wife, whose name was... What's her name? Just Lee? L-I? I think that was his wife. Must have been. Yeah. Interesting. So, he finally, along the way, in 1996, so I'm not sure when the actual first scene took place. I can't remember the exact date. Forgive me for that. But then we move on to 1996, where he finally meets his wife in this secret land that I guess wasn't even supposed to be discoverable, because in order to get there, you literally had to drive through this kind of like maze, but the forest closed in on you. The forest ate you if you didn't make it down the correct path. So that was kind of interesting, and he almost dies just trying to get to this place to find all these sacred creatures. That's what he's looking for, is this legendary place to find all these sacred creatures, and I guess he thinks that he'll have, obviously, ultimate power once he reaches that place, and he ends up getting defeated by his soon-to-be wife, Lee. And so then he ends up, I guess, getting married to her, or at least they were together, and they had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. So that being Shang-Chi, and Xiling, I think, was played by Meng Zhang. That's how I'm going to say her name is pronounced. See, these, I hope I'm not butchering any of the names. So, as we go along, I believe it was his mother that handed him some sort of pendant. And obviously she wanted him to keep it safe, and his sister to keep hers safe. So there's 2 of them, 2 pendants. So eventually, his father, after, I guess, 10 years of letting Shang-Chi live his life, or Shang, as we know him in the beginning of the movie, he sends guys after him to get the pendant. And oh my god, can I just touch on one thing here? The choreography, and yes, I will say choreography, because martial arts is much like dancing. In a sense, the choreography for these scenes was absolutely amazing, and the attention to detail, I will say, was also super, what's the word I'm looking for? It was super. Let's just say it was super, because I can't think of the other word I'm looking for here. So, yeah, once Katie finds out who he actually is, and that he's been this trained assassin from the age of 14, so I guess if his father let him live his life for 10 years, that would make him 24 in this film. Is that correct? Now, how old is the actual actor playing the Shang-Chi character? Oh, 1989, so he'd be 30, 31, 30, 31 or 32. One of those. So I guess it's not that far off, I suppose, as for him to still be in his, I guess, mid-20s. I guess that makes a little bit of sense, I suppose. And his father was played by Tommy Shui Lung, who played Zhu Wenu, or Tony Lung. Interesting. And we actually had a funny, I forgot who this actually was, but he is actually kind of an important piece to the Iron Man series, as he was, I know he wasn't like the actual villain behind it. Obviously, we know the actual villain's name was, now let me just go back to Iron Man 3 here, because there's so many connections between these movies. The actual, oh, Aldrich Killian, right, was the villain in the movie. But the face of the character Mandarin was played by Ben Kingsley, who played Trevor Slattery, who we actually find out later on in the film. And it seems that in this movie, they have actually, Shang-Chi's father has captured him and was going to kill him, but then he did this little bit because he's an actor and they loved it. So now he's been doing acting bits for them for I don't know how long. I think he said about a couple years or something, or maybe it was months. I can't remember. Anyhow, he ended up getting his life spared, and he, as we know, was a drug addict in the other movie, or an alcoholic or a drug addict, one of the two. I think it may be a little bit of both, so because he says that he actually thought he was hallucinating this creature that was in his room with him, or I guess his cell with him, because his dad ends up putting his brother, or Shang-Chi and his sister and Katie, in a cell themselves because they don't believe him about his mother calling to them again. And he thinks he can hear his voice, but it turns out to be an actual demon. I guess called the Soul Sucker, I think is, well, at least that's the name of the, at least that's the name they gave it at the very end of the movie between Shang-Chi and Katie, so that was kind of funny. Forgive me for maybe not remembering the actual terminology for them, but that's basically what they did, was suck the souls out of people and give it to the bigger creature in order for it to gain full power. So obviously Shang-Chi and Katie and his sister Xiling are able to find the place that their mother is apparently supposed to be calling to their father, but she's not. She's still, unfortunately, dead, which it would have been nice for their mother to be alive, I suppose, at the end of the movie, but at the same time, it does make sense that, I guess, that kind of twist in the movie, as their father is kind of struggling with being the good guy and the bad guy at the same time, because he wants all the power, but he also kind of struggles with, I guess the good side is still kind of tugging at him a little bit. Unfortunately, he dies in the film too, I think, or at least that's the way they made it look after him and Shang-Chi fight near the end of the movie. And yeah, I guess the big demon creature sucks the soul out of him. It kind of looked like a dragon in a way, but there was also a dragon, a water dragon, and I guess the demon dragon is what I'm going to refer to it as. I can't remember the actual name of it, so I'm just going to call it the demon dragon. Or I guess the Soul Sucker. We could just call it the Soul Sucker. So the Soul Sucker faces this water dragon that, I guess when Shang-Chi was drowning, the dragon underneath the water gave him air so that he could actually breathe again and reach to the surface. Actually, the dragon pulls him up out of the water. So that was kind of cool. And I guess, no, yeah, so the weapon that their mother left behind to the people of this town that she used to live in was dragon scales. So they have the weapon with the ability to fight off the soul-sucking demons. Luckily. Otherwise, none of them would have made it, and the town would have been destroyed, and they all probably would have died. I'm not sure what would have happened if this creature was able to actually make it out of where they were, because that would have ended, I think, really horribly for most of the world, and I think we would have had to have the Avengers reassemble again really quickly to take out another new threat. And obviously, I think he's going to be thrown into the Avengers just by what happens in the mid-credit scene, I would say. He's going to become part of the Avengers, obviously. I think that's kind of what his introduction story was. I'm not sure how many movies it'll take him to come into the Avengers, because I think it just said he will return. So I'm assuming he's going to have another solo movie before he ends up actually becoming part of the Avengers, because this is Phase 4. So I'm not really sure what the new Avengers team will look like, but I'm interested to find out, that's for sure. So I will say that the ending battle with the two dragons was absolutely amazing. Just the way the CGI was good. It, like, all the creatures looked really real, and I think they really did a good job of, I guess the cultural part of it was really cool, because I've seen some of these creatures kind of on like the walls of Chinese restaurants and stuff. So obviously they are, is ancestral the right word? Is that the right word that I'm using? Or at least they're historical. Obviously in, again, would it be folklore? Is that a tale that's in the Chinese culture, folklore? See, I don't want to get anything wrong here. Is it? I guess folklore would be the right kind of, or fairy tale. Or I guess, yeah, I guess folklore or fairy tale. It's all kind of the same, I guess, across different cultures, isn't it? They might have a different name for it, but that's what we call it here in Canada anyway. Would be a fairy tale or folklore, I guess. Yeah, so the ending battle was obviously insane, and we know that Shang-Chi now has the power of the Ten Rings because his father abandoned it when he was getting his soul taken. And when he first meets his sister, she is actually the, I guess, leader of an underground fighting ring, and her promoter's name was, I believe it was Death Dealer, wasn't it? I believe that's what he referred to himself as, if I'm not mistaken. So he actually ends up fighting his sister and losing horribly. And I'm hoping to see Trevor actually in another film, because although he was like a secondary character, he actually kind of had an important role in this film because he was the one that helped them through the pathway of the forest with the help of this creature, which he named, oh, what did he name it? Was it Monroe? No, that's not right. Anyway, forgive me for not remembering what he named it, but obviously this creature wanted to get back home, and it did find its own, I guess, family or its own type when it got into the, when they finally got through the forest, which they were lucky to. I almost thought they weren't going to make it because the forest closes just at the last second. Of course, they splash out into the water. And one of the coolest scenes was actually when their father took the two pendants from them and put it into the dragon's eyes in his temple, I guess, type deal. And the water, like, kind of like just forms out and you can like move it. It's almost like it's moving in slow motion. It was really cool. I don't know why I did that, but that's what he does. That's what he did in the movie with the water, so I guess I was kind of trying to reenact it. But yeah, and then it shows their the pathway in this like weird water map on the floor. So that was extra cool. And one of the most awesome action scenes, I would have to say, was the one on the scaffolding right outside of Xilin's, I guess, underground fighting ring. Yeah, that was one of the cooler scenes for sure. And they didn't, I think in a lot of the older films, the way they cut the action scenes was very different from this one. This one almost seemed like it was, I don't want to say, it wasn't a one shot, but it was definitely cut differently where you saw, I think, a lot more, and a lot of it was like in slow motion, which I think was a different aspect for a Marvel movie, because a lot of them seemed to be kind of like, I don't know, I've heard shaky cam, but I don't really know if I would call it that. I would just call it kind of like fast cuts, and where sometimes the camera's kind of moving with the hero, but in this one it seemed kind of wider shots, and I thought that was kind of interesting take. Maybe I'll have to go back and watch the film again to kind of better get a take on it, but I thought that's the way it was anyhow. And then at the end credit scene, we see Xiling actually, she's in her room looking at photos, or taking, I guess, the photos off of the wall, and she comes out. The guy that was actually working for her father at one point is now, I guess, working for her because they all kind of banded together at the end to take on the Soul Suckers. That's what I'm going to call them. Again, and he comes out. He had like this sword for an arm, like he was missing his hand, and he had a sword for an arm, and then he ends up putting like the dragon scale, a dragon scale piece into it at the end of the movie. So he has more power than he did at the beginning too, which is kind of interesting. So I'm not sure what part that guy is going to play, but I'm sure he might be a villain again. I don't know, because at the end, Xiling comes out and sits in the chair in front of the 10 rings symbol, and it looks like she has now taken over what her father used to own as the 10 rings, I guess the actual 10 rings organization, I suppose, is what they would be, technically. Jeez, it's hard to really know because, yeah, they were pretending to be a terrorist organization over in the States, which we found out was actually just a farce. Obviously, after this movie, we know the Ten Rings is really totally something different, and it's not just an organization, but it's also a weapon. I guess unlike anything Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner have seen, so that's kind of interesting. Not really sure where that's going to go, but it looks like they're going to be at least in cahoots with Doctor Strange for some part of it, and yeah, I'm kind of interested to see where that story goes, because one of the guys that Doctor Strange has worked with in the past was in this movie. He kind of cameoed a couple times. Once at the underground fight ring, actually, where he fought Abomination. And Abomination looks bigger and way more scarier than before. And then he appeared at the end of the movie when he called them to talk about the Ten Rings and some sort of beacon they're setting off, and I'm not really sure what they're calling to, so that's kind of scary, because who knows whether it's good or it's bad. So I guess we'll see where that goes as well. But I did give the movie a rating of 10 out of 10, because it was that good. And maybe I'd be a little bit biased because I do like the martial arts films a little bit more, but this one just seemed like really non-stop action. Obviously it had the comedy aspect in it, and it had an actual comedian in it, because I believe Awkwafina, I don't know whether she's a stand-up comedian, but I think she's certainly done other comedic roles, that's for sure. And she actually ended up being kind of like a badass at the end of the film with the bow and arrow, because she just kind of went for it and trained, and within, like, I guess she kind of found her skill. So maybe that's also like a little bit of an Easter egg. She obviously is going to be, her life is going to change too. So I'm kind of wondering if after this Hawkeye series in December, she's going to become the new one with the bow, because it kind of seems like they're transitioning heroes a little bit, doesn't it? Like, I don't know. We'll see. I have a theory, but I don't want to bring it up in this video yet until I'm absolutely certain that could be what happens. But I'm kind of feeling like Shang-Chi might be kind of like the new Captain America, a little bit more even than what I've heard about Anthony Mackie's character, the Falcon. I think he might be kind of like a new leader, possibly. And that kind of seemed like the role that Captain America was taking. So I kind of feel like that might be a little bit more foreshadowing that Captain America, or the new Captain America, might be kind of second in command to Shang-Chi. That's just my theory. I don't know for sure. But I did give this movie 10 out of 10, and I've been talking for 24 minutes. I knew I would probably talk about this movie for a while, so... anyhow, as always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on this film if you've seen it. If not, I would say definitely go watch it on the big screen while you have a chance. And my buddy at work told me it's out for 45 days, so hopefully when I actually get this review out, it's still out in theaters, so you guys can actually go see it in theaters, or at least whoever wanted to go see it in theaters got the chance to, because I don't think it's even on Disney Plus yet. I think it's just out in theaters right now, so anyhow, that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.